Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. And today I got CptSugarBear hanging out with me today from the ThreadRaider Podcast. And how are you today, sir?
It is 9 o'clock in the morning for me, and I'm not a morning person, but I'm actually really happy to be here, so I'm doing okay.
Sweet. Yeah, I was wondering if you're on the East Coast or West Coast. That answers that. Uh, I was checking out your podcast the other night, and there's a couple things that kind of really stood out to me as being unique about it. And one is it was very enjoyable to listen to. So it's fun if you guys want to check it out. Links in the description, as always. But one was the length. It was shorter than a lot of podcasts. I was like, oh, this is a nice hour bite size, like a TV show basically. And the other thing is you have a very international podcast.
Yeah. And that was actually kind of by accident. It was literally, it was me going, hey, I've always wanted to do a podcast, and two other people being like, hey, we want to do it too. And then it just turned out, one was in Canada, one was in the UK. I was like, yeah, this is not going to screw with my sleep schedule at all. So yeah, let's do it.
Score. So how long have you guys been at it now?
Publicly since the week of Halloween. Privately, it was a couple months before that we really started trying to figure it all out. I didn't know what I was doing, so I had to teach myself literally every aspect of recording and editing. And we weren't even sure if we were going to have a show. We were just going to kind of do it for fun. And then it just kind of, was like, oh, we might actually have something here. And history was made, I guess.
I feel like a lot of things are started that way. You just figure out what you need to know as you need to know it, and then you just go from there. So what is your show about? ThreadRaider, that makes me think Twitch.
So ThreadRaider, it's a wonderful group of people on Twitter. They're all like in the D&D community, or most of them are in the D&D community. There's a bunch of really positive people, some of my best friends, and I don't even remember really where the name came from or who coined it, but it just kind of came out of the ether. And one day we were just like, oh yeah, we go into Twitter and we raid threads. ThreadRaider's great. That's the name. So, we wanted to adopt that for the podcast, and it just, the show itself is really about nothing. That's the thing. It's a random topic of conversation show. We talk about just literally whatever random crap we think of. Each week we just, we come in, we say, okay, well, this is the topic I want to do. Okay. And that's the amount of planning that goes into that show.
So this might be a spoiler, but I'm kind of a dick like that sometimes. But you guys did a battle royal with mascots from cereals on the episode that I listened to. And that's amazing. I think you guys should stat them out as D&D characters now, and then have a do-over.
Oh my God, yes. And I know just the guy for the job, TK, if you're listening. I'm sure you are. I like that idea a lot. I'm going to tell you right now, Captain Crunch is going to be a CR30, so.
Yeah, I was going to say, CptSugarBear is definitely very passionate about Captain Crunch. That is for sure.
Oh God, the things I get passionate about on that show are ridiculous. I said some horrible things about E.T. because of Reese's Pieces. So
these things happen, man. These things happen. So Captain Crunch, man, he's got those knuckle duster rings too, if I remember correctly.
Oh yeah. No, he's got all that pirate booty. He can afford all the best weaponry and stuff. So and he's got to look fly. So. You said you have some other shows either going on or in the works? Yeah. Just they're things that I work on mainly. One of them is I GM a game of Dread on Twitch on Mondays, and I do all the writing for that as well. And I'm partnered with Dice Bard as the channel that runs it. Oh my God, Dread is so much fun. Dread, just horror. I'm just such a horror buff, so that's just right up my alley. And getting to kill people when a tower falls over is just so satisfying.
So how does that work? I mean, because Dread is very physical. So you guys are all in person in the same space in a studio filming that, or?
So it's kind of funny. They're all in a studio. We're all in an apartment there, and they pull from the Jenga tower. Since I run the game, I don't technically physically have to be there as long as I can see and hear what's going on. So they just pipe me in via. We tried Discord the last time. Usually we do Skype, and we're trying to find just a better program to use to pipe in. We're going to try Google Hangouts next, but
try Zoom.
Zoom. Okay.
Zoom.
Good to
And
know.
also, if you're only using, 2 feeds, then you don't have to upgrade to the paid version if you don't want to. But Zoom works really great, and it seems very resource light as far as tech goes.
Oh, great. Yeah, because we've had some connection issues because we're still getting all the technical bugs out. But yeah, I mean, I don't lose anything in translation from GMing from over here in San Diego while they're up in Canada. It works surprisingly well.
You just can't keep your shows in the same country, can you?
I have a real problem. It's not that I have a problem with America. I love my country, but I got friends everywhere, and I work with anybody as long as they're willing to work with me, I guess.
Or is it that you have to go to other countries to find people to work with you?
Well, I'm just doing the Hollywood model where I just film everything in Vancouver, but everything's paid for out of here.
So how many other games are you playing?
I have my regular D&D session that my buddy GMs. I used to have another one that I was DMing for a while, but things happened and couldn't do that anymore. Group I just couldn't do it anymore. And I'm kind of on a break because I'm hoping to move to Los Angeles this year. So I didn't want to get a new campaign started before I move because then I would just have to cut it. And that would suck. So, I do have plans for, and stuff that I write, but.
So are you going to try and do the LA D&D thing, or you going there for different reasons? Or you don't have to answer?
I'm going there for like similar but different reasons. I found that I really, really like entertainment and being working on projects and creative stuff, and I've got a buddy who suggested that I should take some of my talents and try them out up there because I'm wasting my life in the auto industry. I said, yeah, that's fair. I hate what I do, so sure.
I know most of the mechanics growing up I would talk to, they always hated being mechanics, and they don't be a mechanic, kid.
Yeah, it's funny. My grandfather was a mechanic. He had his own shop. He died before he could tell me that, I guess. Never got that pearl of wisdom.
Yeah. So, well, all of the studios that are doing this kind of stuff are kind of in LA anyway. You have Geek and Sundry and Nerdist over at Legendary. There is, I never can remember the name of the actual studio, but the show is Dragons and Stuff on Facebook. They're in LA as well. And then you have Hyper RPG, or the ones that I know of.
Yeah, I know. I haven't heard of those last two, but yeah, it does seem that Los Angeles is definitely a hub for that sort of thing. And I know on one of your episodes you were talking about how you guys don't really have like a hub like that on the East Coast. But there really should be. There's a void.
I want to find a way to fill it someday.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Hyper RPG is huge on Twitch. If you look at, they're usually like one in the top 3 streaming for the Dungeons and Dragons category.
Yeah, I've seen them on there. I just haven't actually seen anything they do, unfortunately.
Yeah, they also do this weird thing with puppets that I've been meaning to check out that I haven't gotten around to. You know what? It is such an awesome time to be a nerd and a geek. We've got all the things now. We've won.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. When I realized that we won, when I finally convinced my dad to play a game of Dungeons and Dragons with me. That's when I knew, because my entire life he's just like, fucking nerd. That was his whole thing. My whole life. Even when I told him, I was like, hey, I'm getting into D&D. This is kind of a new thing for me. He was just like, nerd. And finally, as I'm talking, I became such a big part of my life to, the point where I even have a tattoo. My dad's like, okay, I'm going to start listening to what you say. And as I'm explaining the game to him, he's like, okay, that does sound kind of fun. And I DM'd a game for him for his birthday, and he loved it. Now he's still bugging me. When are you going to come back and do it? When are you going to come back and do it again? One day, promise. Love you, Dad.
So forget about it. You have to go find your own group like I did.
Or just stumble head first into a group like I did, which is exactly how I got started.
Well, speaking of which, so how did you stumble into your first group, your first game?
Oh God, it's because of my buddy Quinn. To be honest, I had gotten really sick one day watching, and I decided to watch Twitch because I couldn't play video games. I was so sick, and I stumbled across Critical Role, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" And I started watching it. And I was like, oh, that looks really interesting. And then promptly forgot about it for months. Then they ended up on a doing a thing with a podcast that I listened to, and I got another taste of it, and I started to watch it, and I really started to get into it. And then one day my buddy Quinn on Twitter said, hey, I'm thinking about playing D&D. Is anybody interested? And all I said was, that sounds interesting, maybe. And he said, great, see you on Friday. And so I showed up on Friday, and it was history since then. We've been playing almost every single week since then.
Is that in person or over the internet? Okay.
Yeah, it is a local group. Both groups I've been a part of have been local groups. So the group that I play with and the group that I was DMing for.
That's funny. I'm looking at the comments. Retro Kung Fu. You found D&D from Twitch. God, I'm old. I feel you.
You know what? And I'm kicking myself because there was an opportunity probably like 10 years ago for me to get into it, but I didn't really know anything about it. And the guy who asked me to join his group was the cashier at a burger place. And I was just like, I don't know, this is kind of sketchy. I don't know. He's just trying to get me to his house for some reason.
And it almost worked.
It almost worked. I was intrigued. I thought about it. And then I was like, I'm just going to get my burger and go. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this definitely seems like a white panel van scenario. I'm out.
He's got a soundproof room and a chain. I don't know.
That sounds like some of the best D&D to me.
Curses. If only I knew that it wasn't a torture room and it was in fact just a dungeon to play in.
Yeah, who knew? So how long have you been playing now? It kind of sounds like you haven't been gaming that long then.
God, I probably playing about a year and a half, and I DM'd for about a year before my group disbanded.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, not that long at all.
But yeah, you jumped right in, and that's awesome. You're now doing podcasts, and you're kind of like branching out into the whole entertainment aspect of it, and you've discovered different games as well.
Yeah, and I'm actually eagerly learning the Star Wars, like the narrative dice system for Fantasy Flight. And oh my god, I love that narrative dice system. It's so good.
You have any interest in Genesis?
I honestly have interest in everything. I want to learn them all, but I don't know too much about that one, to be honest.
It is the generic system. It's a generic system based off of the narrative dice from Star Wars.
Okay, then yes, I'm very interested because that could be used. That could be applied to so many like custom scenarios. And I just love the idea of that because, like, when I was DMing, I wrote all my own campaign. Like, I used one module to learn how to DM, and when I was done with that, it was Horde of the Dragon Queen. When I was done with that, I was like, okay, if you guys want, we can go to the next book, or we can try something I've been working on. And I mean, we ended up going nuts with that, and that was a lot of fun. So I like a lot of being able to take a custom scenario and use a new system for that. It's cool.
Yeah, I mean, there is the ton of stuff because of the narrative dice and that people were so like upset about that. It kind of makes me like it more.
Oh, you're one of those.
I might be. Well, yeah. My thing is like all the angst over things just annoys me. I'm like, what? You don't like it? I don't know. Maybe don't play it or don't buy it.
Exactly, right?
But just shut the fuck up already.
It's like, what joy are you getting out of shitting on someone else's good time? Just don't partake. You don't have to. No one has a gun to your head. Jesus.
Yeah. I've gotten into a lot of like D&D Beyond arguments that way as well. I'm like, I think it's great. I like it. It's a database, but don't use it. Like, it's really that simple. And if enough of you don't use it, it'll go under, and then you'll have to never see it again. And then maybe someone will come along and do the thing you wanted them to do.
Yeah. Or create the thing that you want. That is an option. It is a valid option.
Oh yeah. Oh, my favorite thing is like, I can't believe I'm gonna have to buy this thing for the 4th time. I love that one. Like, does someone show up with a gun to your head and be like, "You're gonna buy it again"?
Oh my god, that is so god. Oh man, yeah, those people.
Or the best is like, wait a minute, you didn't have the problem the 2nd time you had to buy it or the 3rd time, but the 4th time was the straw that broke the camel's back that you had to buy it.
It was the 4th time, which is the hardest. I was like, I just can't.
Yeah. Maybe 5th and 6th will be easier. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's the fourth one's just the hump. Once you get over that, you're good for at least another 4 buys.
Yeah. So just people, man. What are you gonna do?
Just wonder at them from afar is my whole plan, to be honest.
Just turn them into NPCs in my game. That's all I can do.
That is the best thing. That is the best thing to do. I absolutely. Oh, that was always one of my favorite things. Like I deal in customer service, so I meet a lot of interesting personalities, and I would be a liar to say some of them did not make their way into my games.
Man, absolutely. That is like the only way to do it. It's like the little bit of vengeance you get back on life.
Oh God, especially when they die. Not that I'm advocating for like real life people death, but NPC death, yeah, all the time.
All the places, and sometimes player characters, but not players.
No, not players, but definitely their characters, especially when they decide to screw with 2 adult white dragons, and they'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, that sounds like a tug of war toy.
It was more like an old sack toy that got dropped from really, really, really high up.
Yeah. So, do you prefer DMing or playing?
I've been asked that before, and I don't have a good answer for it because I get different things out of each thing. Like when I'm playing, I can really invest into the personality of a PC and like kind of really dig into their story and become that player. But as a DM, I can create an entire world and lore and situations and like just cool events and things that like I created this upside down tower where my PCs had to relive their backstories, like the worst parts of their backstories that were just written up to that point. They got to actually live those horrible moments, like, and really mess with their heads. Like, so I definitely get something different out of both things.
That sounds like a great adventure, by the way.
Oh, it was.
So, for me personally, it's always like if I'm running the game, then I want to be playing. If I'm playing the game, I want to be running.
Yes. Yeah, that's the feeling right there.
That is where I get stuck. So, but it's all good.
Yeah, that's why I was very fortunate. I got to do both. I would do one on Saturday and one on Sunday. So I was never like jonesing for one or the other. Now I'm just playing right now, and I'm GMing Dread, which is different, but it kind of scratches that itch a little bit for me. So it's not too bad not DMing for D&D right now.
Yeah, well, one of the things we ended up doing with when 5th edition came out is my partner Ted, he ran a game, and then I run a game. They're just monthly games. And then we would fill in like once a month with someone else that would run a game. So it gave us a nice fill for GMing and playing. And it's the longest campaigns we've ever been able to run without burning out and like just ending them or restarting. So we've actually taken characters from 1st level to like 14th to 16th level now, which is unheard of in our group. I mean, our gaming group has been together for, I want to say, about 20 years ish. Nice. So, but we like my buddy Mark would say, for us to get to 14th level, we had to start at 11th. So,
oh man.
And then now I run a weekly game online, and I play in a weekly game online, and then I also play in a Marvel superheroes game that we run as well. And now that game is probably before your time. Game has been dead for like 30 years. So
yeah, but you guys are bringing it back. So there you go.
Yeah, well, no, and it's funny, like the amount of love that game gets. It was a great system, but I think it's like an IP purgatory.
Oh, well, most definitely, especially now that or since Marvel's been bought out by Disney, and Disney's very strange with how they handle that IP. So.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Like, I guess I don't know the specifics, but I'm surprised FFG still has the Star Wars.
I was actually I expected. I think Disney is stamped at the bottom now, though. Of the books, I have to look.
It is.
Yeah.
That's the crazy part. Like, they're stamped at the bottom now, and I just assumed at some point there'd be a retraction, but it's still going.
I guess it's popular enough, maybe.
I don't know. It's an RPG, and it's not Dungeons and Dragons. It can't possibly, like, even Dungeons and Dragons wouldn't be popular enough, right? Right? In the bigger scope of things. I almost feel like it's like a bureaucratic like glitch that hasn't been caught.
Or maybe one of the guys, I don't know, Bob Iger, I think, is all the way up there at Disney, or somebody up there is like, yeah, we could kill it, but I really like it.
They're a gamer. They're actually a gamer.
Yeah.
Let's not tell. It kind of makes me feel like you've seen the movie Office Space.
Oh yeah.
My stapler guy, and he's like, "Oh, we're still paying you."
Oh my god, he's just like secretly like working on new adventures. Just.
But yeah, but I mean, it's a fun game. I don't know if I haven't decided yet if I want to use those mechanics for any other games because it's definitely a crunchy system.
Yeah, it is.
And as I get older, I just kind of like non-crunch.
Yeah, I think, but I almost feel like it's like that kind of front end, like front loaded. But when you're actually playing, it's not so bad. It's just kind of getting there. It's like you said, like kind of crunchy.
So Ben has a question from the chat. I've convinced my DM and group to start streaming our next campaign. We'll likely be starting within a couple of months. Any tips to players or DMs who want to get in streaming in 2018? So the first thing you have to kind of ask is like, what is your goal and your objective as a streamer? Do you just want to take your game and put it online for other people to watch, or are you doing it because you want to entertain people? Depending on which one of those paths you go down, are going to greatly change how you play the game, or do the streaming for that matter. I mean, you guys are doing Dread now, and you're streaming that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. There are two different paths. If you're just putting it online because you just, maybe someone want to watch our game or, check out what we're doing, that's one thing. But to put on a game where you're specifically trying to entertain an audience, you are going to play that game a little bit differently. You're probably going to act more into it. You're going to really, it's more performing while you play rather than just playing. So, if you are trying to, if that's the path you're going down, be prepared to really get into character. You have your DM really get into, actually DMing the game and like really bringing the NPCs to life and bringing the world to life, and really learning how to paint a picture for the audience in a way that's engaging and keeping them engaged, because that, to me, that's the difference, is engagement and performance.
The big thing is going to be pacing. If you're playing the game for entertainment, because we do a bunch of different. We've got a couple of games, like the one that me and Ted run is our long running 5th edition games. We literally just put up a camera, we got a mic, and we don't do anything with those. We just put them up, and that is, we are just playing the game. Now, even with that, there's minor things like, because of our setup, we have to go, well, we have to try and minimize the crosstalk because no one's going to be able to hear, when we do that. But other than that, it's pretty much, this is the game we play. Now, our Marvel game that we play, there's a lot of production with that. We actually have an overlay going on. It's an online game. It's interactive, where we have people in the chat to get involved in the game. We have someone that runs things behind the scenes, so they'll flip up different images. They'll act as a switcher for cameras, and they'll also do sound effects and stuff like that. So that's like a totally different level of production. Our Saver Dice game has a bit of production to it, and we're very conscious that people are watching for entertainment as well with that one. So we're always trying to keep it moving, keep the pace going, and being cognizant that it's just not your standard D&D game. And some of the things that we really like about playing D&D are actually kind of boring to watch. And I think those are the moments that people who are streaming for entertainment try and make faster and gloss over when they can. And like, combat is not particularly exciting in D&D, bare bones. So there's just some things to think about, but ultimately just decide like what your goal is, and then you can work towards that. You can always hit me up on social media, and we can talk if you like. And again, guys, just remember, if you have any questions, put question in front of it, so this way we can find them and pick them out easily. So How often are you guys podcasting? What is this show schedule?
So originally we were going to be a bi-weekly show because we honestly didn't expect there to be a whole lot of interest at first. And so we were recording, once every 2 weeks, and that was going to be fine. After the first episode came out and it kind of exploded in a way we didn't expect, we talked about it and decided to go weekly. So we still do it that way, but we record 2 episodes every time we get together and record. So that's pretty much the schedule. Is every other Sunday. We knock out a couple episodes and then we're good for 2 weeks and so on and so forth.
Nice. I definitely understand batching. We tend to film twice a week and we do a minimum of 10 videos a week that we film. So it just makes it easier. I'm surprised more people don't comment about how come you guys are always wearing the same clothes?
See, that's the thing for you for video. Like for me, I can do the magic of behind the scenes, except that when I got really, really sick and just my voice was just shredded, that was pretty obvious that we do it that way. But, other than that, it's just the behind the scenes magic.
There's not a whole lot you can do about your voice being shredded.
No, it was awful.
So Dev the Darker wants to know, how do I spice up my NPC lives?
I think motivation is a big thing. When a lot of people when they throw an NPC in the world, it's just kind of to fulfill a role. They go to the merchant and oh god, okay, got an NPC that's a merchant. This, that, or the other. You don't have to go all crazy like full backstory, but some motivation, things that they might like, things that they might dislike, triggers they might have. Kind of makes them feel more fleshed out and real. And a lot of that stuff, you can have even just a chart next to you to kind of roll on the fly if you need to. Or, you could just kind of pre-build, 5 or 10. That's what I used to do. And just kind of plug them in as necessary, in various roles. But, having some kind of motivation, I think, is a really good way to have the NPC have a little bit more life breathed into them.
I used to be a big fan of index cards and the little boxes you could store them in. And I would have all that kind of stuff kind of pre-done, whether it's an encounter, magic items, NPCs. And you can even do the same with traits for NPCs. Now it's so much easier because there's a random table somewhere online. You can click a button and it'll spit that stuff out for you. I think the biggest thing with NPCs is to not overthink it and not overwork it, because what happens is the ones you invest the most time and effort for, your players will not care. And that random street sweeper you throw in there, that's the one they're going to gravitate and want to see every session.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what happens. That exact thing happened to me. I built this really cool NPC. I was really proud of her. I was like, she's going to be great. They're going to love her. They met her we hate her. We want her to die. But the merchant that you created, that guy that you literally just came up with on the fly, he is now our favorite person on planet Earth. Yeah, of course.
It is the rule of being a GM. That is destined to happen.
Yes. The struggle is real.
So Carrie wants to know, what has been your favorite podcast moment?
Oh man, I wonder if that's Carrie. If that's Shrieky Carrie.
Carrie Jean.
Yeah,
on YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Favorite podcasting moment. That so it's equal parts hate and love, and that is the entirety of episode 10 of our show, because we recorded it after our holiday party. All of our big group of ThreadRaiders got together on Discord and opened presents together and had a few too many drinks. And right afterwards, we had to record a couple of podcast episodes because I had been sick the week before, so my voice just couldn't handle it. And that was a drunken shit show. It was so much fun, but after listening to it afterwards, I was just cringing the whole time. Especially, I know I mentioned to you before we went on air, just something about E.T. and Reese's Pieces that I said that I'm just still... It's the thing that if I ever try to run for president, they're going to play a clip of and be like, no, you can't, sorry.
I don't really get into politics on this show too much, but I would like to say that you can pretty much do anything nowadays and be president.
That's fair. I think we actually said the exact same thing on the show, but I might have been drunk to remember it till you just said it.
Yeah, well, what are you gonna do? These things happen. I just
All I'll
think it's
say, oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say when you're talking and saying how you guys were having the ThreadRaider party through Discord, open up presents together, getting drunk together, and you guys are probably all over the world spread out doing this. It is just an amazing time to be alive.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it really, really is. I mean, I grew up pre-internet, so seeing the things we can do now, like the fact that you and I can have a conversation live like this in front of people, is just nuts. So
Yeah, between technology and where the industry's gone and the community that we have, I'm like blown away because I grew up in the Satanic Panic, and I was gaming, through the 80s and 90s, and for us it was like freaking Fight Club. The first rule about gaming is we don't talk about gaming, and we used to depending on which friends, like, you always had like different cliques. So like most of my friends were like headbangers or metalheads. And those of us that gamed would just keep it quiet and not tell everyone. We actually had code words for it. Like, hey, what do you want to do this weekend? I don't know. Let's rock out. And that meant play D&D. Because, the first rule was you don't talk about playing D&D.
oh yeah.
And now it's like it's in popular culture. It's like you could just pick a random person on the street and ask them what's Dungeons and Dragons, and they'll tell you something. They'll have like an idea and a concept of it. Yeah. Or they might say, I watched Critical Role, but I never played. So.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. That's actually one of the reasons why I got my D&D tattoo where I got it, which is on my left forearm. Because like you said, like when I was growing up, like I wasn't into D&D at the time, but I was into a lot of other, like video games and just things that even at that time you still didn't really like talk about if you wanted to have any friends, which didn't really serve me well anyway. I got it on my forearm because I didn't want to hide those aspects of myself anymore. So I wanted this tattoo in a very visible place where anybody that sees it will be like, what's that? And then I get to explain it to them. And that's been really fun sometimes. A lot, but it's funny. I've learned that a lot of people confuse Dungeons and Dragons with LARPing for some reason.
Well, yeah, that's pretty true too. Like, some of half our group would LARP and half of our game was just strictly tabletop. And I remember we were gaming at my buddy's house and his apartment. He was not home from work yet or something. We're kind of like hanging outside waiting. Well, my partner Ted, and actually it was probably Nate as well, and maybe one or two of their other friends were there. And so they have nothing to do. They're bored. They open their trunk and they pull out their LARPing gear and they start fighting with styrofoam sticks in front of his apartment. He gets home. He's like, if you ever fucking do that again, I will fucking kill you. I will end you. Go pull that shit out in front of my house. They could have been like smoking a J or something or doing lines off the hood of the car. He'd be less offended.
I guess he's got his priorities right.
Well, it was a different time. And those guys were always very open about what they did. And like, we would like, it wasn't until I started doing Nerdarchy that I'd even talk about this is a thing that I do. And, even like talking to people you work with, it's like on the weekends, like, what are you doing? Don't worry about what I'm doing, man. I'm murdering people and leaving them in the woods someplace. That's what I'm doing.
It's funny you say that. One of the guys that is in the group I play with, I had been playing, crap, I don't even remember. I think it was like when Overwatch first came out or something like that. And we'd been playing like every Saturday night. And I was like, hey, we're going to have to play on a different night because I have a thing that I'm doing now on Saturday nights. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, don't worry about it. You don't worry about it. He's like, well, what are you doing? Nothing. He's like, and I kid you not, we didn't even know each other that well. But he says, if you're playing Dungeons and Dragons and you're not telling me, I am going to be super pissed at you. And I didn't know what to do because I could not understand how the hell he guessed that was what I was doing. I was like, fuck. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. He's like, yeah, no, you need to get me invited to this. And so now he plays with us. But, it's like you said, at work, I was just kind of like, yeah, I'm just doing a thing. I have a prior engagement every week now. So
hookers blow something, just, don't worry about it. But one of the things that kind of really changed the conversation for me too is like, after doing YouTube and stuff like that, I'm like, I do this thing, and and they're like, you make money to doing that? I'm like, yeah, I get paid to do that now. So, and I was like, oh, once you can attach a dollar value to something, it totally changes people's perception. It went from this like stupid weird thing you did to go, wait a minute, I work a job that sucks and I hate, and you're doing this thing you like doing, even if it's weird, and you make money. I'm like, yeah. So, I mean, now, granted, it took quite a few years and a lot of hard work to get to that point, but it does help to change perceptions. And now we also have all these people that are like Hollywood types that are coming out as gamers or doing it streaming. So it's just made it better for everybody.
Yeah. And it's funny, like because I'm actually a manager somewhere, and so I have employees, and they've been asking me, they ask me what what are you spending all this time doing, and I try to explain it. So when I was first getting into D&D, I was like, yeah, I write stories essentially, and I help tell the story with other people who help me tell the story. And once I started like really kind of explaining to them how the games go, what happens in the game, stuff like that, I've noticed that a lot of people actually, when you really take the time to explain how the games go, or, you talk about a session, they go, huh, that actually sounds really interesting. And now I get my guys at work sometimes ask me, hey, what happened in last week's game? It's weird, but it's cool. Like, I like it. It's a lot better than fucking nerd, like my dad used to do.
Yeah. So now they're getting living D&D vicariously through you.
Pretty much, yeah.
Now, when you started telling this story, instantly my mind went to like before you got to the part where you're like telling them what you're doing, you write stories. I'm like, I bet they're gossiping, and there's a bunch of rumors about how you're like a romance novelist now or something.
Well, I mean, there was that one romance between the half orc and the black dragon, so that was an interesting session.
It probably didn't go well for the half orc.
Sorry, black half dragon. That does change the dynamic a little bit.
Yeah, maybe less face melty. Zareth Gaming, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Okay. Zareth Gaming, how do you know when you have enough material for a session?
You don't. that's the real answer for me, at least, is because you write what you think will be enough for a session, and either they'll breeze through something you thought was going to take forever, or they'll take forever something you thought they were going to breeze through, or they're going to sidestep the entire story altogether, and you're just going to be improving the entire session. That's the rule of players, is players going to play.
Yeah, I have to agree. Like, I'll write 3 pages, use 3 sentences from that, and be like, okay. Or they'll like you said, they'll breeze through it, or you'll be like, hey, I wrote 3 pages last time, didn't even use a page, so a page should be enough. And then that's not it. It's probably how I came to like my way of DMing. Like, now it's like, I might write down 3 sentences and then work it out from there, because I've written so much material in the past. It's just like,
yeah. I mean, like for me, I know I write down the lore of what, is going on in my world. But as far as like actual events, there might be like a plot hook or a plot point here or there, and I'll write that down like in an outline format. And then I'll just kind of build the rest of it from there as the game goes, because my players were so unpredictable that, I mean, you just never knew. So you couldn't plan for anything they were going to do, because they would talk all session about how they're going to do this one thing. Then you're like, okay, I finally have it. I have the best thing a DM could ever ask for. They spent an entire session talking about the cool thing they're going to do. You can write out that cool thing. And then the next week they thought about it and like, no, we don't want to do that anymore. So it pays, like, for me, again, it pays just to have kind of an outline of ideas of things that might happen or could happen, and then just filling it in as you go.
Yeah, I generally anymore, I come to a session with an idea for a fight or an encounter, right? And then at some point when there's a lull, I will throw that out there. But for the most part, it's just, I just react to whatever they do. And it might even change like what that encounter was, because, well, maybe I planned that encounter to happen in the city. They won't go near the city. So you have to do something different, and you just roll with the punches. But the best thing is just when you have a group that's really active and they're role playing with each other, and they just have stuff they want to do. My Scarlet Sisterhood game has centered around, they've been tracking like this drug dealer. They got involved, then they ended up getting involved with some hags to reverse some of the side effects of the drugs that were going around. And then they decided, because every time after an adventure and they go back to town, they end up going to the tavern or the inn to get a hot bath, that they want to open a bathhouse. So like all these things are like constantly going on at the same time. And there's no way to predict which way they're going to bounce.
Yeah, no one predicts opening a bathhouse. I'm sorry.
That was yeah. Oh yeah, and they really get into it. They're like, I want to open a bathhouse, and you know what? We absolutely need dirty limericks spread throughout the bathhouse in thieves' can.
I'm not gonna lie. I wish I could have seen your face at that moment. Just God.
And so you probably can. You just have to sift through a bunch of video.
Yeah, wish me luck with all my free time.
Yeah. So. But it's great. So I love it when players do things like that. So I'm like, oh, the bathhouse is almost done. So I have to do something to the bathhouse. We can't just have it open. That would be no fun. Yeah. So I had a crazy gnome kind of invent a heating system that, is tied to a portal to the elemental plane of fire, and trapped in a free in it, and then they get sucked into it and they have to deal with that. And then they're going to get back, and then they have to figure out how they're going to heat the water again.
That's one hell of a water heating system.
Well, fire elementals, it's very green.
I mean, to be fair, that's about the amount I know about actual water heaters. So for all I know, that's actually just how that works.
We just have little fire elementals in there heating a pot of water for us, essentially.
I mean, hell, it might as well be magic. It's about my extent of knowledge.
And thus Eberron was born.
Yeah, because your washing machine broke and the hot water broke.
Kyle has a question about GMing. What is the moment that, looking back on, changed how you play or DM for the better? This will probably be a lot easier for you since you haven't been doing it as long.
Honestly, it was a moment. I think it had to be when I kind of just when I realized that I can't predict my players. That was a moment where things got really good for me, and that's because I would spend a week writing this insane session, and it would all go to waste. And it's not that I was like ever upset about it or anything like that. I was just like, huh. And then I finally realized that the best way to GM is to improvise and to really build that muscle, and that's when it became just the best thing. When I really just kind of leaned heavily into improvising and trusting my players to make their own fun, but, and I can guide them in their fun, but, trust them to take the little bits of things that I give them and to really make something of it. And, to really make that collaborative story. So it was when I stopped over preparing, and started just, again, leaning heavily into improvising.
It's the fuck it moment where you're just like, fuck it.
Yeah.
I don't care anymore. Do whatever you guys want. You want a bathhouse? Build a freaking bathhouse. All right, we'll go through. We'll get the permits. We'll find your contractor.
I had that moment in my head where it's like in my head, all my notes just went, just forget it.
It's kind of freeing though. Like like you said, you just need to plan particular moments to throw out there. And it's like scattershot, right? You want a bunch of them, and don't invest in any of them heavily. And you just need like a germ of an idea for them to. So this way, if they kind of latch onto one of them, you can run with it. If they don't, it doesn't matter because you didn't spend that much time on it.
Yeah, and that you're right. Freeing is exactly the word for it, because when you invest so much time into something, you're more inclined to want to try to railroad, and it's never really fun. You want players to have the agency and to make the decisions, and you just kind of, hold their hand through it. So yeah, just throwing all that crap out the window and just being like, you know what, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. You guys are going to make your choices. You're going to fucking live with them. Just kind of going from there.
I want to say for me, it was probably more recent when we started doing Nerdarchy and we started paying attention to other things that were going on online. Because prior to Nerdarchy, we're like, the internet didn't exist for D&D. It was for like it was for porn and cats. Like that was it, right? And then we decided to do the YouTube thing, and like, oh, people are really doing other things on the internet as well. Who knew? And And we discovered the D&D communities and tabletop communities and how games were being run, which were vastly different than our table. We've always have evolved and developed our table in a bubble. And once we burst that bubble, I think it completely changed the style that we run games. And player agency was a new concept to us. Yeah, like maybe it was there, it was like an unwritten rule, but not in the sense where you can let your players actually create stuff right during the game that you never intended, and it's okay. So I want to say probably for us, that was like the biggest thing, was probably coming into the age of technology and finding our brethren online.
Yeah.
So in Of Planar Crossroads, has a question. I find having a group chat, Discord, Facebook, etc., that lets me keep my finger on the pulse of my players' intentions. Is this something that you employ? We do, but you may learn at some point, like Ted did, is like, we're definitely doing this thing. We're going to do this thing. This is the plan. And then we show up to the table and go, nah, we're going to do this instead. So.
Yeah, I never had like a system like that. We had a group Twitter, but it was mainly just for scheduling. Hey, when are you guys free? Are we meeting Saturday? Are we meeting Sunday? At what time? It's kind of funny. Like, I don't like, my players mostly didn't really interact with each other out of the group so much. Like, some of them were friends, like had known each other for a long time, but to my knowledge, they didn't ever, plan behind my back, and they certainly didn't include me in the plans. So, but they ended up thwarting everything anyway, so it worked out well for them.
Yeah, we kind of do the same thing. We have a Facebook chat and we use it for scheduling and stuff. And then sometimes other things will pop up in there, or like in particular instances, the GM was like, hey, I want to know what's going on for the next session. What's the plan? What do you guys plan on doing? This, or this? Can you let me know? And we did, and then did the opposite. So,
I think that's why I never asked that question. Because I think it was after that week where they were like, yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And the next session, they did not do that at all. Where it's like, I'm not even going to bother. Forget it. Don't want to know.
And then I remember, like, we were like going to tackle a death tyrant, and someone started like a chat that excluded the GM so that we could plan.
Nice.
Which I got a kick out of that. It reminded me of some old school us versus them mentality that used to be kind of a style of gaming that I have not seen in many, many years.
I feel like it's still healthy to have like a little bit of that, because I mean, especially with like boss encounters and stuff like that, it's okay to have a little bit of an us versus them right there.
So, I'm not sure about this question. Blue Soul Rain. Is it wrong to make new mobs for D&D games? I'm not sure what that means. Asking, since some of my players like the normal stuff, but one keeps looking up their info. Oh, okay, now I get it. Up in the books. You mean I'm guessing new monsters. Yeah, why would you not? And I find, one, don't say the monster. Like, that's number one, unless it's something that's common, they would really know what it is. And two, even if it is common and know what it is, if you just describe it many times, their minds will conjure up something different, and they might think they know what it is, but there's a lot of times that they're wrong.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of like to reskin monsters too, so that if they have an idea like, oh, these attacks seem familiar, but I have no idea what this thing is, so I'm not sure what it's capable of. It's nice to have that element in combat.
Well, yeah, and once you describe, and that's the other thing, just reskinning monsters, that's that is a favorite of ours. Picking a monster that you mechanically like and just describing it different completely changes it. I did an encounter with the Goblin King based off of the Jareth character from Labyrinth. I just used the Chain Devil. That was it. Instead of chains, he attacked with silks.
That's awesome.
And like, yeah, no one's gonna figure that out. I did one time I totally ripped off Firefly, and to a certain extent, and I had like it was a Spelljammer game, and they were transporting something. And they didn't figure it out until the last moment, and it was this young girl that was encased in this gel or whatever, and basically it was a demon that they happened to awaken and it attacked them. And, I described it as being a young elf woman, but I just used the stats for a Marilith. So, she's fighting with 2 swords, but getting like 6-7 attacks around. And like, they're like, what's going on here?
Yeah. And another one of my favorite things is like variants. So like I built something I called a spectral beholder. And that was actually, I had mentioned that upside down tower before. That was kind of the thing at the bottom of the tower guarding the treasure that was down there. And essentially it was just a beholder, but it was a beholder that could possess people and it could like move through walls and stuff like that. But mostly just a beholder, so sometimes giving a monster just a couple of little extras that the players don't expect, because it's your world, you can do that. And I think sometimes we forget that, we don't have to use them exactly as they are in the books.
Well, and it even makes more sense with beholders because they're freaking weird anyway, and they're all different. But yeah, the idea of a spectral beholder is freaking awesome. And then your players, like, it's you could literally just say it's a beholder, but you guys can see through it, and they're like, "Oh, it's an illusion," and then their mind will go in all a bunch of different directions. But yeah, tweaking monsters, making them just a little bit different and keep your players on their toes. Absolutely, do it.
Yeah.
C.A. Hollenbach. Maybe I missed this, but does CptSugarBear use full terrain and minis or theater of the mind?
I have never gone full terrain. That's just way out of budget for me.
You never go full terrain.
Well, no, because then it just collects dust on the wall. It looks nice though. No, I use a mixture. It depends. Some bigger fights with more people, got to keep track of a lot of stuff. I'll use a grid and minis, and a lot of red tokens. But if it's an easy fight or a small fight, then some theater of the mind. My players trust me, and I trust them to be fair. So, and we were all pretty good at being able to describe what's going on and kind of be able to see it in our heads. So yeah, again, just for kind of tracking purposes, we would use a grid, but
we do the same thing. I have no desire to run a full terrain game, but I would love to play in one.
Oh, absolutely. As long as I don't have to invest in it, I'm good.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is it's like it takes a lot of buy-in from your players because, like we discussed, they're going to do other things. Well, I just put down like $1,000 worth of terrain. Motherfuckers, we're doing this dungeon.
Yeah. It's like, I just bought this really nice castle. Well, we're going to the desert. Great. There's a castle in the desert.
This castle is literally following you. It's got a bunch of little feet. You can't escape it.
I just got a really good idea for a monster.
The crawling castle?
Yeah, the crawling castle.
Let's see, the Lord of Blades. The Lord of Blades has his walking city, which is I guess it's kind of similar. It's a whole city on a bunch of legs. It moves around the Mournlands. I don't know if you're familiar with Eberron or not.
No, fortunately.
It's it's older. It's actually one of the few campaign settings I actually ran. We generally do all homebrew stuff, but the Eberron stuff, it was just fantastic. And after playing traditional fantasy for like 10, 15 years, maybe longer, it's like it was just nice to play something different. It's very like Arcana punkish.
Oh, that's cool.
Very high magic, elementals everywhere. That's why I said Eberron, because like they have vehicles that are all powered by elementals, like airships and basically a train, and their boats. Do you prefer pre-written or homebrew?
Honestly, homebrew. And main reason is because it's way easier for me to improvise on my own world than on stuff that's supposed to happen in a book somebody else wrote. I did cut my teeth with a pre-written, but as the pre-written went on, I started to just add more and more of my own stuff or alter more and more stuff to something, stuff that I thought might be more interesting and I thought my players might enjoy more. But ultimately, just for ease of running a game alone, homebrew is definitely my style.
No, I have to agree. I feel like to run a pre-written adventure well, like I'm like, that means I have to read the whole thing. Then I have to customize it to my players. And by the time it's all said and done, I could have probably just ran several of my own adventures.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know, I got to memorize this map. I got to memorize this. I have to build their backstory into this thing. It's like you're practically writing your own thing anyway. You're just writing it with the skeleton that was already there.
When I first started gaming and DMing, when I would write my own stuff, I would write it like it was an adventure or a module. So now, like after going back to trying to write some stuff, we've like a couple pre-written adventures on our website, and I was like, oh my god, I don't know how to write an adventure. Be like, ask questions like, what do you play? My pre-written adventure, I'd be like, well, what are your players doing? Well, do something with that.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like it's funny. I look at all my old notes from like when I first started writing to like the last notes that I had, and it's like pages and pages of lore and information, and then a sentence here, a description of something there, and another sentence there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the progression when you realize, yeah, or you're gonna write like I used to like write my own flavor text, and I'm like, and then I realized I don't even say all this. Why am I writing it?
Oh yeah, like I used to write like little like bits of dialogue for like the big NPCs or like the big bad. Like, yeah, this is the thing the big bad's gonna say, and then we get to that point in the game, and a player would just like fart on him, and I'm like, well, he can't give his speech now because that's not gonna make any sense. He's gonna start killing people now. Like,
or you're like, he's about to open his mouth to say something, and they all just attack him.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that happened to my buddy. He was one of my players, and he's somebody I play with, and he ran a one shot, and you know the Mace of Disruption. I think that's the one it was called. The one where if they're under 25 HP and they hit it and they fail the saving throw, they kind of explode.
Yeah.
But he created the Spirit of the Forest, and it was under 25 HP and it failed the saving throw. And it was actually his girlfriend who's killed it and destroyed it, and he's just like, all it wanted to do was talk to you. He had this whole speech plan for the Spirit of the Forest, and it was just obliterated.
Oh, that's awesome. Too bad it's a one shot, because if it wasn't, then I would have like, you know, the forest begin to get blighted, and I could have done so many amazing things.
Well, the guy who DMs for us was playing too, and me and him just looked at each other, and we looked at our buddy Sai. We're just like, welcome to DMing. Now you understand. Now you understand the looks on our faces sometimes.
Yeah, we had a game campaign we ran. It was a short arc. One of our friends came around for it called Nerdarchy Saves the World, and we used the modern rules, played ourselves, and like the big bad, you know, we get to him, and it's supposed to be this long, drawn-out, dramatic fight, and he's in the process of raising a force field, and one of the characters is like, I swoop in on a griffin, slide on my knees under the force field, and then I attack. And he's like, all right, make this check, make that check, and then make your attack roll. Does it, then crits with a short of sharpness or vorpal weapon, and just knocks off his head.
Oh, no. Yeah, it's definitely vorpal right there.
Yeah, so it's just like, and that's the end of the campaign.
I mean, to be fair, that really was an epic way to go. I mean,
it is when you can, as a GM, let go of your monsters and your story, and just let the players have it. It creates these great stories that are fun to tell.
Oh yeah, and that's the stuff that you remember forever.
Yeah, and it's one of the hard things for certain GMs to learn and do. You know, they're just like, oh, it's my story, and I must tell it.
Well, and that's the big lesson right there. Is it's not your world, it's our world. You know, it's not my story, it's our story. You know, it's all collaborative.
It is, and that's when you get those fun, great moments that that are going to live on, many years, and you're going to sit around with your friends drinking a beer or whatever, and you're going to tell those stories. Not that great. This great story that you came up with as a GM. No one cares.
Yeah,
at least that's my experience anyway.
I completely agree.
It's when my ideas and your ideas meet, and then these fun things, unexpected things happen. Well, as always, an hour goes by really fast.
It did.
So, guys, in the description, you can find CptSugarBear, all the links to the ThreadRaider Podcast, their website, social links. So I saw there was more questions in the chat. If they're directed at me, you can bring them back tomorrow when we do this again, or you can go stalk CptSugarBear and ask him on social media. But I want to thank you for coming on. It's great having you on. And thanks everyone for hanging out with us today. So until next time, guys, stay nerdy.